I need to tell you something I never thought I'd say out loud. I'm 56 years old, and 6 months ago, I didn't know my own bank password. I didn't know how much our mortgage payment was. I didn't know what our car insurance cost, or when the property taxes were due, or even how to reset the thermostat when it got too cold. I didn't know the name of our accountant, or where David kept the investment statements, or what our monthly expenses actually added up to. I didn't know these things because for 32 years, someone else handled them. Someone else made those decisions. Someone else controlled the money, the logistics, the entire financial framework of our existence. And I let him. I let him because I thought that's what partnership looked like. I thought I was being a good wife by trusting him completely, by not questioning, by not demanding to be involved in every detail. I thought we were dividing responsibilities like a functional team. He handled the money and the big decisions. I handled the home and the children and the social calendar. I thought this was normal. I thought this was marriage. 32 years. That's how long I was married. 32 years of building what I thought was an unshakable life, a fortress of stability that nothing could penetrate. We met when I was 24 years old, fresh out of college with a degree in communications and dreams that felt both infinite and impossibly vague. I wanted to do something meaningful, something creative, but I had no concrete plan. I was waitressing at a restaurant downtown, living with 2 roommates in a cramped apartment where the hot water only worked half the time, trying to figure out what came next. David was 27, already working at a prestigious engineering firm, already on a clear, mapped-out path toward success. He came into the restaurant one Thursday evening with colleagues, and I was their server. He had this confidence that I found magnetic, almost hypnotic. He knew what he wanted from the menu without hesitation. He made eye contact when he spoke. He left a generous tip and his business card with his phone number written on the back. I called him 3 days later. We went to dinner at a French restaurant I couldn't afford, and he talked about his 5-year plan, his 10-year plan, his vision for the future. He talked about buying property before the market got too expensive, about maxing out retirement contributions, about building something solid and lasting. He had it all figured out, and I, who had nothing figured out, found that incredibly attractive. I fell in love with his certainty. I fell in love with the idea of being part of something purposeful, something bigger than my own confused ambitions. We got married 14 months after we met, in a ceremony at his parents' country club. It was a beautiful wedding, 200 guests, a 6-piece band, flowers everywhere, a dress that cost more than 3 months of my rent. I wore my mother's veil, altered to fit me. We honeymooned in Bermuda for 10 days, staying at a resort where everything was pink, the sand, the buildings, even some of the drinks. We came home to a 1-bedroom apartment in the city and started building our life, with the kind of optimism that only young people possess. The unshakable belief that if you follow the rules and work hard and stay committed, everything will turn out exactly as planned. Ryan was born 2 years later. I was 26, terrified, completely unprepared for the reality of motherhood. Nobody tells you how lonely it is, how monotonous, how your entire identity gets swallowed up by this tiny person who needs you every second of every day. I quit my job. David said it made more sense financially. And besides, we wanted our children raised by a parent, not a daycare worker. Emma came 3 years after Ryan, and then my life became this endless cycle of diapers and feedings, and nap schedules and pediatrician appointments. But I loved them. God, I loved those kids with a ferocity that scared me sometimes. I loved them so much it physically hurt. Every milestone, first words, first steps, first day of school, felt like both a triumph and a small death, proof that time was passing, that they were growing up and away from me. We bought the house when Ryan was 5 and Emma was 2. A 4-bedroom colonial in a suburb with excellent schools, low crime rates, and streets lined with mature oak trees. It had black shutters and a wraparound porch that I immediately started decorating. Mums in the fall, evergreen wreaths in winter, tulips and daffodils in spring, American flags and red geraniums in summer. I spent hours making that house perfect, turning it into the kind of place you'd see in a magazine spread about ideal American family life. We had the landscaped yard with the Japanese maple tree we planted the year Ryan was born, watching it grow alongside our children. We had the two-car garage where David kept his tools organized on pegboards, and I kept plastic bins of seasonal decorations labeled with my label maker. We had the annual vacation to the same beach house in Cape Cod, the one with the blue painted shutters and the outdoor shower where the kids would rinse off the sand before dinner, their skin golden from the sun, their hair bleached lighter by salt water and summer. We had dinner parties where I'd spend 2 entire days preparing, deep cleaning the house, planning the menu, shopping for ingredients, cooking dishes that looked effortless but required hours of work. I had china we only used for special occasions. I had cloth napkins I'd iron the morning of the party. I had a signature cocktail I'd make for arrivals and a dessert that people would ask me to bring to other gatherings. I took pride in being a good hostess, in making people feel welcome and impressed. We had inside jokes that had accumulated over 3 decades, references that no one else would understand. The way David would say, "situation normal," when something went wrong. From that time, we got lost driving to a wedding and ended up 2 hours late. The way I'd hide his reading glasses in increasingly ridiculous places as a running prank. The shorthand we developed for communicating across a room at social events. A raised eyebrow that meant, "We need to leave soon." A slight head tilt that meant, "You need to rescue me from this conversation." We had a rhythm that felt like forever, a routine that was so deeply ingrained it became invisible, like breathing. Monday was pasta night, always, without exception, for 30 years. Thursday was David's poker game with the same group of guys he'd been playing with since his 20s. Saturday mornings were for farmers market runs and weekend errands, stopping at the same coffee shop where they knew our orders without asking. Sunday evenings were for meal prep and catching up on recorded shows, sitting on opposite ends of the couch, his feet in my lap while I painted my toenails. I thought I knew him completely. I thought I knew every story from his childhood. The time he broke his arm falling out of the treehouse, the teacher who told his parents he'd never amount to anything, the first car he bought with money he'd saved from his paper route. I thought I knew every scar on his body and how he got it, the one on his knee from a skiing accident in college, the small one on his thumb from a kitchen mishap early in our marriage, the surgical scar from his appendectomy. I thought I knew every food he hated, cilantro, blue cheese, anything too spicy. I thought I knew every anxiety that kept him up at night, worries about his job security, concerns about whether we were saving enough for retirement, fears about the kids making good choices. I thought marriage meant there were no secrets, no hidden corners, no parts of yourself you kept locked away from your partner. I thought we were as close as 2 people could be without literally sharing the same body. And then one Tuesday in March, David came home from work early. It was 3:15 in the afternoon. I remember the exact time because I was watching the clock, waiting for it to be late enough to start prepping dinner without feeling like I was rushing the day. I was in the kitchen, unloading the dishwasher from lunch, listening to a podcast about unsolved mysteries. The house was quiet in that particular way houses are quiet when you're alone in them. A peaceful silence that I'd grown to appreciate after years of chaos when the kids were young. I heard his car in the driveway, heard the familiar sound of the garage door opening, and my first thought was that something was wrong. Maybe he was sick. Maybe he'd been fired. Maybe there was a family emergency. David was the kind of man who arrived home at exactly 6:03 every single evening, with the consistency and reliability of a German train schedule. Early meant something bad. He didn't take off his coat, that's what I noticed first. He came in through the garage door into the kitchen, and he was still wearing his wool coat, still holding his briefcase, standing there like a stranger in his own house. And I knew before he said a single word that something catastrophic was about to happen. You know how they say animals can sense earthquakes before they hit? That's what it felt like. The air pressure in the room changed. Everything got very still and very quiet, like the world was holding its breath before the ground started shaking. He said the words that split my entire existence into before and after. I'm not happy. I haven't been happy for years. I need to figure out who I am before it's too late. I remember laughing, not because it was funny, but because my brain couldn't process what was happening. The sound that came out of my mouth was strange and hollow, almost mechanical, like it belonged to someone else entirely. I said something stupid like, "Did you have a bad day at the office?" My voice sounded bright and concerned, cheerful even, like I was talking to one of the kids who'd failed a test or hadn't made the soccer team. And he looked at me with this expression I'd never seen before in 32 years of knowing him. Pity. Deep, uncomfortable pity mixed with something else. Resignation, maybe, or relief that he was finally saying the words out loud. The way you'd look at a wounded animal you know you can't save, that you might need to put down to end its suffering. And that's when I felt the first crack, the first fissure in the foundation of everything I thought I knew about my life. "This isn't a bad day, Linda," he said, and my name sounded foreign in his mouth, formal and distant, like he was talking to an acquaintance rather than the woman who'd shared his bed for 3 decades. "This is years of feeling like I'm suffocating, like I'm playing a role that doesn't fit anymore, like I'm watching my life happen to someone else and I'm just going through the motions." I stood there, still holding the dish towel I'd been using to dry the lunch dishes, my hands frozen in this useless gesture, trying to understand what he was telling me. My brain was scrambling to make sense of words that seemed to be in English but might as well have been a foreign language. "What are you talking about? What role? This is our life. This is what we built together. This is what we chose." "You built this," he said, and there was an edge to his voice now, something sharp cutting through. "You wanted the suburbs, the perfect house, the dinner parties, all of it. I just went along with it because it seemed like what I was supposed to want. But I never actually wanted any of this." That's when I got angry. Really, truly angry in a way I hadn't allowed myself to be in years. "I built this. Are you kidding me right now? Every single decision we made together. The house, you picked the house, David. You're the one who insisted on this neighborhood because of the school ratings. You sat with the realtor and went through all the statistics about property values and test scores. You're the one who wanted the home office with the view of the backyard so you could work from home sometimes." He shook his head slowly, like I was missing the point entirely, like I was too dense or too stubborn to understand what he was really saying. "I'm 59 years old, Linda. I'm 59 and I feel like I've been asleep for 30 years. I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know what I want. I don't know what makes me happy. And I need to figure that out before it's too late, before I'm too old, before I die without ever knowing what my life could have been." The details came out slowly, over the next hours and days and weeks. The way poison seeps into water, spreading gradually, contaminating everything it touches until there's nothing left that's clean or safe to drink. There was someone else. Younger, obviously, because of course there was. Of course the midlife crisis came with a younger woman attached. It's such a cliché it would be funny if it wasn't actively destroying my entire existence, ripping apart everything I thought was solid and permanent. Her name was Simone, 38 years old, a civil engineer who joined his firm about 2 years ago, transferred from the Boston office. They'd been seeing each other for 7 months. 7 whole months while I was meal planning and grocery shopping and folding his boxer shorts and asking him how his meetings went when he came home from work. 7 months while I was being the good wife, the supportive partner, the woman who made sure his mother got a birthday card on time and his favorite snacks were always stocked in the pantry and his shirts were picked up from the dry cleaner every Friday. 7 months of lies. 7 months of him coming home and kissing me on the cheek in that absent, automatic way, and asking what was for dinner while he had another woman's perfume on his collar, another woman's texts lighting up his phone. 7 months of secret phone calls and late meetings that weren't actually meetings and business trips that probably included her. 7 months of me being completely, pathetically, stupidly oblivious. How did I not know? That's the question that haunted me, that kept me up at night replaying every interaction, looking for signs I'd missed. How did I not see it? Were there clues I ignored? Was I willfully blind, or was he just that good at lying? Had our marriage become so routine, so automatic, that I stopped actually looking at him, stopped noticing the details? He moved out 3 weeks later. That's how fast a life can dismantle when you decide it's over. 3 weeks to pack up 32 years. The mediator we hired, because we were going to be civilized about this, mature adults who could handle things amicably, helped us divide everything. He took the furniture he wanted, the leather couch we'd bought in Italy on our 20th anniversary. Sari trip, the piece we'd saved for and deliberated over for months. He took the dining room table his mother had left him when she died, the antique oak table that sat 12 people and had hosted countless holiday dinners. He took the desk from his home office, the expensive ergonomic chair, the filing cabinets with all our important documents. He took the art we'd collected together, pieces we'd chosen on various trips, the watercolor from that gallery in Santa Fe, the sculpture from the artist we'd met at a festival in Vermont, the photographs from our trip to Iceland. Every piece had a story attached, a memory, a moment in time when we were happy or excited or in love. And now he was taking those moments with him, packing them up for his new life with his new woman. He took half the kitchen equipment. We literally divided the pots and pans, the good knives, the small appliances. He took half the linens, half the towels, half the books from our shared library. Half of everything, divided with surgical precision by lawyers who charged $400 an hour to itemize our lives, to put price tags on memories, to reduce 3 decades of shared existence to a spreadsheet of assets. But here's the thing nobody tells you about divorce when you're my age, when you've been married since you were 24 years old, when your entire adult life has been completely intertwined with another person. It's not just losing a husband. It's losing your entire identity. It's waking up every morning and not knowing who you're supposed to be anymore. It's looking in the mirror and not recognizing the person staring back because she's always been half of a pair, never a complete individual on her own. I didn't know who I was without him. I was David's wife. That's how people introduced me at parties, at school functions, at neighborhood gatherings, at church. This is Linda, David's wife. Not just Linda. Not Linda with her own identity or accomplishments or interests. Linda, defined entirely by her relationship to a man. I was Ryan and Emma's mom. I was the woman who hosted book club and volunteered at the animal shelter every Tuesday morning and made that really good spinach artichoke dip everyone asked for at parties. I was the person who remembered everyone's birthdays and anniversaries, who organized the neighborhood holiday cookie exchange, who could be counted on to help with any community event or fundraiser. But who was I? Just me, alone, stripped of all those roles and relationships and responsibilities. I had no idea. I was 56 years old, and I had absolutely no idea who I was as an individual, separate entity. That realization was almost more terrifying than the divorce itself. At least the divorce was something happening to me. This identity crisis was something wrong with me, something broken inside that should have been there all along. The financial terror hit me like a freight train at full speed. I'd worked part-time for years, mostly administrative jobs at local businesses, receptionist at a dental office where I answered phones and scheduled appointments, office manager at a real estate agency where I handled paperwork and coordinated showings, things that fit around the kids' schedules and didn't require me to miss soccer games or school plays or parent-teacher conferences. I had no career, no professional trajectory, no significant savings of my own, no retirement plans separate from our joint accounts. Everything was joint. Joint checking, joint savings, joint investments, joint property. Our lives were so completely merged that separating them felt like trying to unscramble an egg, a technically possible maybe, but messy and painful, and ultimately leaving you with something that doesn't resemble what you started with. When the divorce lawyer started talking about asset division and alimony calculations and spousal support and tax implications, I felt like I was underwater, drowning slowly while everyone around me breathed normally. Everything sounded muffled and far away, like I was hearing it through layers of cotton. She kept using terms I didn't understand: equitable distribution, marital property, separate property, temporary maintenance, permanent maintenance, rehabilitative alimony. I nodded like I comprehended, took notes in a notebook I'd never look at again, but inside I was screaming. I was screaming because I realized how vulnerable I'd made myself, how completely dependent I'd become without even noticing it happening, like a frog in slowly boiling water. The house was worth $850,000. We had about $200,000 in combined retirement accounts. We had a savings account with $70,000. On paper, it looked like I'd be fine. I'd walk away with substantial assets, enough to start over comfortably. But the reality was so much more complicated than numbers on a spreadsheet. The house had to be sold because neither of us could afford to buy the other out. Half of $850,000 sounds like a lot of money until you realize you need to find somewhere to live in one of the most expensive housing markets in the country, where even modest homes start at $500,000. The retirement money was supposed to stay untouched. That was for later, for actual retirement in 10 or 15 years, when I'd be old enough to access it without penalties. The savings would be split, giving me $35,000 to somehow rebuild an entire life from scratch. The alimony was temporary. 5 years, the judge decided. 5 years to figure out how to support myself for the rest of my life. 5 years to build a career at an age when most people are thinking about retirement. 5 years to become the kind of financially independent person I should have been all along but never bothered to become because I thought I was safe. I thought I was protected. I thought, till death do us part, actually meant something. And then there was the social fallout. Oh God, the social fallout. This was almost worse than the financial devastation because it was so unexpected, so shocking in its cruelty. Our couple friends, they evaporated, literally overnight like they'd never existed. These were people we'd known for 20, 25 years. People whose kids had grown up with our kids, attended the same schools, played on the same sports teams. People we'd celebrated birthdays and anniversaries and graduations with, who'd been in our house hundreds of times, who knew where we kept the good wine glasses and which drawer had the bottle opener. But they weren't my friends, I realized. They were our friends. They were David's friends, really, from his work or his college days, and I was just the wife who came along with the package. And when our became just me, they disappeared like smoke. The group chats went silent, no more planning for weekend dinners, no more sharing funny memes, no more coordinating couples trips. The dinner invitations stopped arriving. Phone calls went unreturned. Text messages got read receipts but no responses. I'd see them at the grocery store or the gas station and watch them literally turn their carts around to avoid me, pretending they hadn't seen me even though we'd made eye contact. It was like I'd contracted some contagious disease, divorce, and they were afraid they'd catch it if they got too close, afraid that whatever had caused my marriage to fail might spread to theirs if they associated with me. I found out later, through Emma who heard it from a friend, that David and Simone had been invited to the Hendersons' 4th of July barbecue. The Hendersons, who we'd been friends with for 18 years. Linda Henderson and I had served together on the school board. Our daughters had been in Girl Scouts together. We'd taken a couple's trip to Napa together for our 25th anniversary, stayed in adjoining rooms at a bed and breakfast, spent 4 days wine tasting and laughing and making memories I thought would last forever. And I wasn't invited to her barbecue. David was, with his new girlfriend who was young enough to be his daughter, barely older than Ryan. But not me. I was the ghost, the ex-wife, the reminder of something uncomfortable and awkward that nobody wanted to deal with at their summer party. When I finally got up the courage to call Linda Henderson and ask her about it, maybe there'd been a mistake, maybe my invitation got lost, maybe she'd simply forgotten. Her voice was cold in a way I'd never heard before. Distant and annoyed, like I was bothering her with something trivial. "It's just awkward, you know," she said. "Doug and David work together. We can't take sides in your divorce. And honestly, Linda, you've become kind of difficult lately. Everything is so heavy with you. We just want to have fun, not deal with all this drama you're bringing everywhere." All this drama. My 32-year marriage ending, my entire life falling apart, was drama I was inflicting on her summer barbecue plans. I hung up and cried for 3 hours straight. I fell into this dark, suffocating depression. Not sadness, depression. Clinical depression, the kind that makes your limbs feel like they're filled with concrete, that makes getting out of bed feel like climbing a mountain. The kind where your brain tells you that nothing will ever be okay again, that this pain is permanent, that you should just give up because what's the point anyway? I'd wake up at 3 in the morning in our old bedroom. My bedroom now, I guess, since David was gone and the house was empty except for me and the boxes, forgetting for just a second that everything had changed. There'd be this brief, beautiful moment of normalcy where I'd think about rolling over to tell David something funny I just remembered, or I'd start mentally planning what to make him for breakfast. Should I do pancakes, or would he prefer eggs and bacon? And then really, Ty would crash back in like a wave, cold and merciless and suffocating, and I'd remember. He's gone. He chose someone else. He was unhappy for years and never told you. Your entire life was a lie. You wasted 32 years on someone who didn't love you enough to stay. You're 56 years old and you have to start completely over with nothing. I lost 15 pounds in 6 weeks because food tasted like cardboard, like ashes, like nothing at all. Everything tasted like nothing. I'd make myself eat because I knew I was supposed to, because Emma kept calling and asking if I was taking care of myself, but it was like chewing and swallowing sand. Food was just fuel I had to force down my throat to keep my body functioning. I stopped answering my phone because I couldn't bear one more person asking me how I was doing in that careful, pitying voice. That voice that said they already knew I wasn't okay, that they expected me to not be okay, that maybe they even enjoyed seeing me not okay because it made their own lives seem better by comparison. I stopped showering regularly because what was the point? Who was going to see me? Who cared what I looked like or smelled like? I'd go 3-4 days without washing my hair, wearing the same clothes I'd slept in, not bothering with makeup or even brushing my teeth sometimes, until the taste in my mouth got too disgusting to ignore. I just sat in that big empty house that we were about to sell, surrounded by boxes of possessions I had to sort through and decide what to keep and what to let go. Every object was a memory. Every memory was a knife cutting into me. The coffee mug David brought me back from a work trip to Portland, the one with the skyline design. The picture frame Ryan made in 3rd grade art class, covered in glued-on seashells and painted gold. The throw blanket we'd bought together at that craft fair in Vermont, made by a woman who raised her own sheep and spun her own wool. How do you decide what pieces of your life are worth keeping? How do you choose which memories to pack and which to throw away? My daughter Emma was the one who finally staged an intervention. She flew in from Seattle on a Tuesday, didn't tell me she was coming, didn't give me a chance to tell her not to. She just showed up at the front door with her suitcase and let herself in with her key. She took one look at me, unwashed hair piled on top of my head, same yoga pants and sweatshirt I'd been wearing for 3 days. The kitchen piled with takeout containers I hadn't bothered to throw away, and I watched her face crumple with concern and fear and something that might have been disgust. "Mom," she said, and her voice cracked with emotion. "Mom, you're scaring me. You need to make a decision right now. Are you going to let this destroy you, or are you going to fight?" I didn't have an answer. I just stood there in my filthy clothes in my half-packed house, staring at my beautiful daughter who looked so much like me at her age, and I started crying. Not delicate tears, but ugly, gulping sobs that came from somewhere deep in my chest, somewhere primal and wounded. I cried for everything I'd lost, everything I thought my life was supposed to be, all the years I'd invested in something that turned out to be built on sand, all the dreams that had died, all the future I'd imagined that would never happen now. Emma held me while I cried, and when I finally stopped, when I'd exhausted myself into this numb, empty calm, she said something that stayed with me. "Mom, I know this feels like the end. I know it feels like your life is over. But what if it's not? What if this is actually the beginning? What if this is your chance to figure out who you really are, what you really want, without having to consider anyone else for the first time in your entire adult life? I didn't believe her, not then, but her words planted a seed in my brain, circling in my head during those long, sleepless nights. A tiny seed of defiance growing in the darkness. A whisper that said, "You're not dead yet, you're only 56. You could live another 30, 40 years. Are you going to spend all of them mourning what you lost? Or are you going to build something new?" The house sold in April, way faster than we expected, faster than I was ready for. Apparently, our neighborhood was hot right now, and our house checked all the boxes for young families looking to move to the suburbs. Good schools, low crime, updated kitchen, big yard. A couple in their early 30s with 2 small kids and a golden retriever bought it. I watched them walk through during the final showing before closing, and I saw them pointing out where they'd put the Christmas tree in the living room, talking about which bedroom would be the nursery and which would be the playroom, making plans for the backyard. Maybe a swing set, definitely a vegetable garden. They looked so happy, so full of hope and possibility. They looked like David and I must have. Looked 30 years ago when we bought this house, when we thought we had our whole lives figured out, when we believed that love and commitment and following the rules were enough to guarantee happiness. I couldn't afford to stay in the neighborhood, not even close. Not on my half of the proceeds and the temporary alimony that would last for exactly 5 years. The houses in our area started at $600,000 for anything decent, and that was for smaller places that needed work. I'd looked at a few with a realtor who kept using phrases like "adjust your expectations" and "starter homes" and "up-and-coming neighborhoods," which I quickly learned was code for bad areas you'd never have considered before. So I moved to a 1-bedroom apartment on the other side of town, in a neighborhood I'd driven through hundreds of times but never really seen, never really noticed because it wasn't relevant to my life. 600 square feet total. 1 bathroom with a shower stall, no tub. A galley kitchen the size of a closet with minimal counter space and old appliances. The living room and bedroom were technically one space with a half-wall divider that didn't actually divide anything. There was no storage except one small closet. No yard, no patio, no outdoor space at all. No garage, just street parking that was first come, first served, meaning I sometimes had to park 3 blocks away and walk home with my groceries. The building was old, built in the 70s, with thin walls and cheap carpet and fluorescent lighting in the hallways that flickered and buzzed. I cried the entire first night, sitting on an air mattress because my furniture hadn't been delivered yet, wouldn't be delivered for another 3 days. The apartment had thin walls and I could hear everything. A young couple arguing above me about whose turn it was to take out the trash, someone's TV blaring through the wall to my left, footsteps in the hallway at all hours, car alarms going off on the street, sirens in the distance. The air mattress kept deflating, slowly losing air throughout the night, and I kept having to get up and pump it back up with the manual pump. Standing there in the dark in my new apartment that smelled like old carpet and paint, exhausted and defeated, and wondering what the hell I'd done with my life, how I'd ended up here. By 4 in the morning, I'd given up on sleep entirely. I was sitting on the floor with my back against the wall, wrapped in the one blanket I'd brought with me, watching the sky slowly lighten through the window that looked out onto the parking lot. And I thought, this is rock bottom. This is what failure looks like. 56 years old, divorced, broke, alone, sitting on the floor of a shitty apartment in a bad neighborhood with nothing and no one. But something happened in that cramped little apartment over the next weeks and months. Something unexpected. Something that started so small I almost didn't notice it, like the first green shoots pushing through soil after a long winter. I started to hear my own thoughts. For the first time in decades, maybe for the first time in my entire adult life, there was no one else's needs to consider, no one else's schedule to work around, no one else's preferences to accommodate. No one was going to walk in and ask what was for dinner or tell me the TV was too loud or complain that I'd moved his things or remind me that I'd forgotten to buy his favorite cereal. It was just me and the silence. And slowly, very slowly, over weeks and then months, the silence started to feel less like loneliness and more like space. Space to breathe, to think, to exist without constantly monitoring someone else's mood or needs or expectations. Space to figure out what I actually wanted, what I actually liked, who I actually was underneath all those layers of roles I'd been playing. I did things that sound small but felt monumental, revolutionary. I ate cereal for dinner standing at the counter, not bothering with a bowl sometimes, just eating it straight from the box. I watched entire seasons of reality TV shows that David would have hated, would have made snide comments about, without having to justify my choices or use headphones or wait until he was asleep. I stayed up until 2 in the morning reading if I felt like it, the lamp on as late as I wanted, no one sighing dramatically about needing to sleep. I left dishes in the sink overnight, sometimes for 2 days, because I was the only one who'd see them and I decided it didn't matter. I bought decorative pillows that served absolutely no practical purpose whatsoever, just because I saw them at HomeGoods and thought they were pretty, and I'd never been allowed to have pretty things that weren't also functional. I painted one wall in the bedroom a deep teal color, a color David would have hated, would have vetoed immediately. I hung art I'd found at thrift stores, weird pieces that spoke to me even though they didn't match and were sophisticated and probably had no resale value. I opened my first bank account that was only in my name. I'll never forget that day. It was a Friday afternoon in late May, sunny and warm, and I walked into the bank branch near my apartment with my divorce papers and my driver's license and a check for $5,000. Part of my settlement money, money that was mine and only mine. The bank manager, a woman named Patricia who was maybe 10 years younger than me, walked me through the process. She was patient and kind, didn't make me feel stupid for not knowing things I probably should have known. "So this will be just in your name?" she asked, typing information into her computer. "No joint account holder." "Just me," I said, and my voice shook a little. "Just my name, Linda Catherine Morrison." My maiden name that I'd taken back as part of the divorce, reclaiming my identity from before David, from before marriage, from before I became someone's wife instead of my own person. Patricia smiled at me, and there was something knowing in that smile, something warm and understanding. Like maybe she'd been through something similar, or maybe she just recognized the significance of what was happening. "Congratulations," she said. "That's a big step. You should be proud." I signed my name on the forms. Linda Catherine Morrison, the signature I was still getting used to writing, still looked a little unfamiliar, and I felt this surge of something I couldn't quite name. Power, autonomy, independence, control, all of those things and more, all mixed together into this feeling of possibility. My own money, my own account, my own password that no one else knew, that I didn't have to share with anyone, that gave me access to funds that were completely under my control. It sounds like such a small thing. People do it every day without thinking about it. But for me, at 56 years old, it was everything. I started going to yoga classes at this studio 3 blocks from my apartment. I'd never done yoga before in my life. David used to make fun of it, called it overpriced stretching for bored housewives with nothing better to do. But I saw a flyer on a telephone pole advertising beginner classes, and I thought, why not? What do I have to lose? So I went, and you know what? I was terrible at it, absolutely awful. I couldn't touch my toes. I couldn't do downward dog without my arms shaking. I fell over during tree pose, literally fell right out of the pose in front of everyone. But the instructor, this woman named Maya, who was maybe 40 with gray streaks in her dark hair, she just smiled and said, "You're exactly where you need to be. This is your practice, not anyone else's." And for some reason, that made me cry. Right there in the middle of class, tears streaming down my face while I was trying to do warrior pose. Because no one had told me that in so long, that I was exactly where I needed to be, that I was doing fine, that I didn't need to be perfect or compare myself to anyone else. I kept going back, 3 times a week, then 4. I got better slowly. I could hold poses longer. I could breathe through the difficult parts. And more importantly, I started to feel like I inhabited my body again, like I was connected to myself in a way I hadn't been in years. I got a job at a marketing firm downtown doing social media coordination. It wasn't glamorous, managing Instagram accounts for small businesses, scheduling posts, responding to comments and messages. But it was full-time with benefits, and the pay was decent, and most importantly, I was good at it. Really good at it. Turns out, all those years of managing family logistics and organizing school fundraisers and coordinating neighborhood events had given me skills I didn't even know I had. I understood how to engage people, how to create content that got attention, how to build community online. My boss, a woman in her 40s named Jennifer, noticed. She started giving me bigger accounts, more responsibility. After 6 months, she promoted me to senior social media manager with a significant raise. Me, the woman who thought her career was over at 56, who thought she had nothing to offer, who thought she'd be lucky to get any job at all. I started traveling by myself. Just small trips at first, weekend getaways that felt terrifying and brave. A weekend in Boston where I walked the Freedom Trail and ate North End cannoli and browsed bookstores in Cambridge. A few days in Vermont where I stayed at a bed and breakfast and hiked mountain trails and ate dinner alone at local restaurants, bringing a book so I wouldn't feel self-conscious. But then I got braver. I went to Portugal for 10 days. Alone. Me, Linda Morrison, 56 years old, who'd never traveled anywhere without David, who'd never even been on a plane by myself. I stayed in a tiny hotel in Lisbon with a view of red-tiled roofs. I ate pastéis de nata every morning at the same cafe, became a R. Regular, who the owner greeted by name, even though we didn't speak the same language. I got lost in the Alfama district and didn't panic. I just wandered, looking at the azulejo tiles and the laundry hanging from windows and the old women sitting in doorways. I talked to strangers at cafes in broken Spanish and hand gestures. I took a cooking class and learned to make bacalhau, salted cod prepared a dozen different ways. I sat on a beach at sunset in Cascais, my feet in the sand, watching the sun sink into the Atlantic, and realized I was happy. Genuinely, deeply, surprisingly happy. Not happy despite being alone. Happy because I was alone. Happy because I was free. Here's the truth I learned, the truth no one tells you when you're young and falling in love and building a life. I didn't fail at marriage. I outgrew a version of myself that was too small, too accommodating, too afraid to take up space. David leaving wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of the one where I finally became the main character instead of the supporting actress in someone else's narrative. Last month, I started my own consulting business. I help other women navigate career transitions after major life changes, divorce, empty nest, widowhood, any of those moments when your identity gets shaken and you have to figure out who you are and what comes next. I work from my little apartment, with my coffee exactly how I like it, strong, with oat milk and a little cinnamon, without anyone commenting on how much caffeine I consume or telling me I should switch to decaf. I have clients who respect my expertise, who pay me for my knowledge and experience. I have a bank account that grows every month. I have plans, real plans for my future that are mine alone, that I don't have to compromise on or negotiate with anyone else. Do I still have hard days? Absolutely. There are moments when I see an older couple holding hands in the grocery store, still together after all these years, and I feel a pang of grief for what I thought I had, for the future I'd imagined. There are nights when I wonder if anyone will ever love me again, if it's too late to find that kind of connection, if I'm too old or too damaged or too set in my ways now. But those moments pass. They come and they hurt and then they go. And what remains is this: I know who I am now. I know what I'm capable of. I know my worth isn't tied to someone else's validation or presence or approval. If you're going through something like this right now, if your life just imploded and you're sitting in the wreckage wondering how you'll survive this, wondering if you'll survive this, I want you to hear me. You will survive. You will rebuild. And the woman who emerges from this fire will be someone you're proud to know. She'll be someone who knows her own bank password, who books her own flights, who doesn't apologize for taking up space, who doesn't make herself smaller to make other people comfortable. I'm 56 years old. 32 years of marriage ended in one conversation on a Tuesday afternoon.